Hi, thank you for taking time to join us today for this webinar about the lending process within banking environments. We're happy that you could join us today, take some time out to listen to this, and we think you'll find this quite interesting. So the presenter today is Mark Settle. He's the Director of Technical Services at HotDocs, and he's been here since '98, so he's had a lot of experience. And Mark Settle, he currently leads the Technical Services organization at HotDocs, and he's been a member of the client-facing services team for over 10 years, providing services to customers in banking, real estate, legal, insurance, and other industries. And Mark he's worked on large-scale implementations for both large banks, law firms, Fortune 500 companies throughout the U.S. and even some globally. And Mark has worked at HotDocs for 15 years, including time on the template product development and the software development teams. And the services team that Mark leads provides pre-sales support and demonstrations, training services, project management, template development, integration and development services with the HotDocs product line for customers. And he brings some great experience with the HotDocs product, as well as proven ability in assisting clients in understanding the capabilities of HotDocs, scoping the requirements for implementation of the HotDocs software, designing and implementing integrations with data sources and other third-party software. And his strengths are working directly with clients and managing proper relationships, demonstrating product capabilities, and providing customer-facing technical expertise. And he also has a bachelor's in computer science from Brigham Young University. And so with that introduction, I'd like to turn the time over to Mark now. And at the end, we'll have a few minutes to answer some of your questions, so feel free to type those into the GoToWebinar panel in the questions box. And then at the end, we'll have time to address those. So I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you, Mark, and we'll take it from here.
All right, thank you very much, Marvin. And yeah, just again, a reminder on questions. The only way to ask those questions is to type those in the panel in the webinar. Marvin will be moderating those questions as we go along, and we'll respond to those at the end of the webinar. So today we're going to talk about simplifying your lending process with document automation. So to get started, we want to talk just a little bit about why HotDocs, why choose us as a document assembly vendor. So a little bit about HotDocs as a business. We have over 1 million users worldwide and well over 9,000 separate customers. We are the pioneer of this marketplace. So we pioneer document assembly, and we are the global market leader. We have well over 20 years of experience with document assembly. Currently, HotDocs is deployed in over 60 countries worldwide, with offices, our primary offices in the UK and in the US, and we have a large network of over 50 global partners. And HotDocs is a proven technology that really works across various vertical markets. HotDocs started in the legal market. We still have a very large presence there. But as you could imagine with document assembly, it's really going to be very prevalent anywhere where there's a lot of repetitive document creation. So also in insurance and banking, we have a very large presence, including for the top 5 global banks. We're also a Microsoft partner and have received various awards over the years for our product. So the first thing I want to talk about is what's the challenge? Why use document assembly? And there's really 3 pieces to that I want to get started with here that are general challenges to creating good documentation. The first is compliance and risk. With any business, you really want to mitigate risk as much as you can. So you want to make sure that when you're creating documents, you're doing it in an accurate way, in a way that's very maintainable and comprehensive and intelligent. And so document assembly helps check that box, helps implement a way that is going to allow all of that to be managed properly. The second challenge is really around standardization. So as you work across multiple documents, especially in a larger organization, you really have to work hard to make sure that there is standardization across those documents. And often if you've got disparate groups working on different documents, then enforcing standardization gets a little bit more difficult, but you want to be able to standardize things like your branding and headers and footers and styles and other things within your documentation so that your business really has a common look and feel when a document from your business goes to one of your clients. And then lastly, efficiency, of course. We're always looking to save time and money. HotDocs is all about helping with efficiency, creating a faster process in that documentation creation. So there's so many different ways that people have historically created documents in a manual process, or even attempted to automate it with some of their own processes. And a document automation tool really can solve some of the problems that you run into with some of those previous processes. So a little bit about how HotDocs works. So HotDocs, there are really two sides to HotDocs. There is the power user who will create content. We'll talk about what that is in just a moment. And then there are end users or users who will consume that content. So they will use the content that's created to generate documents. So on the content creation side, you have documents that you use within your business, and the power user takes those documents and can use those documents to create a template or templates. So a template is created from document content, and then it adds logic and variable content and other things built into it to really drive a document assembly process. Then that template is deployed and used by an end user. So you'll see here content creation always happens with a tool on the local machine. Maybe the content is stored on the network or elsewhere, but it is a desktop software for creating those templates. The end user process, you can see, can be deployed to a local machine, but also to a cloud or a server process as well. So content consumption, the user will then be able to select a template and complete a questionnaire to be able to generate an output document. So that would be a dynamic questionnaire that will ask them the appropriate questions to gather the right information to generate a proper output document or documents. So the user might complete that questionnaire. Also, data may come from another system into that questionnaire. And then once that questionnaire is completed, then there will be an output document or documents. And also coming out of that questionnaire would be a set of answer values that the user could save to reuse later. An important distinction as well is if data is coming from another system, it might go directly to the document. So you might be able to skip that questionnaire altogether if the data is coming from the system is all of the data that's needed to generate that particular document. So that's a basic overview on how the end user process works for HotDocs. So thinking about document automation and some of the documents that are ideal for lending, you have all kinds of different documents listed here. I'm not going to go through each of them, but you've got promissory notes and commercial loan agreements and guarantees and other documents that you might create. Also, you might do some things with customer onboarding, so actually intaking data from the client. So you could use that interview to gather specific data from the user that might go into other documents. Some of the challenges with the lending process, so things that are pretty common without a document assembly software, is you have an inefficient process. So even trying to manage that process when users are copying, pasting, or basing off maybe even just a base gold standard document and making changes, that process might be a little bit more labor intensive or time consuming, might lead to additional errors. There might not be a full workflow around the process, or even there may not be good integration with the system of record or the loan origination system where the data is actually starting for a particular loan. So those are some of the common challenges, and so you're leading to, it's checking some of those boxes in that process. Sometimes you're getting a little bit more risk than you want. It's inefficient, it's not saving the time that you need. And then you might have different groups or business areas within your business creating documents in a different way, so the standardization is not there either. So these are some of the common challenges. So how do you meet these challenges? How do you solve them? 3 easy steps how you might do that. So the first thing is you really need to understand what your document production process is. So you need to evaluate what's going on now so you can know what you need to do to solve the problem. So you would take some inventory and identify different relationships between different people, what technologies are there, what type of process needs to go along there, and what client interactions you might want to have as a part of that process to gather the information that you need. After you have that information, then you can take your documents and understand the process and create automated templates. So as a part of that process, you're going to take the documents that you have and convert them into templates. And that will allow you to do things like standardize specific content, especially things like signature blocks or headers in a document. Identify the different data fields that you're going to be pulling from other systems and the data fields in the document. You might utilize document packages when you're building out those templates as well. What that is a process where the user enters some information, but they get multiple documents as output rather than going through separate processes for each separate document. And then as a part of designing and creating your automated templates, you really need to plan for the continual improvement that you want to have in the future. So as a part of that design and create process, there really needs to be a planning stage as well for how you're going to manage and maintain in the future. And that's very important to make sure that you have continual success and that you have continual return on investment in the document automation process. Then lastly, you want to deploy and integrate the templates with your systems and workflow. So you're going to deploy those. So we go from content creation to deploying to a user environment. And when you deploy, whether it's a cloud or a desktop system or a server-based system, you want to make sure that you have some test environments and some production environments so that you have a way to test that content before you roll it out to all of your end users for use. And then you might have some specific implementations of integrations with software that you use. So definitely within a lending process, almost every bank that I've ever worked with has some system of record or loan origination system where some of that data is going in up front. So you want to pull some of that data into the loan documents that you're creating as part of the lending process. But you're likely to have some other processes that you may want to integrate with as well, whether it be a ECM or document management system, other databases to pull information, a specific workflow tool or solution to really follow the workflow as it needs to go through an approval process or other steps in a workflow, or e-signature processes as well to actually electronically sign the lending documents that you create. So I want to talk about a case study of a specific global bank. And so let's start out talking about the problem that they had, which falls really well in line with what we were talking about, those three common problems that you have. So the first thing is they had disparate documentation systems. This is a global bank, a top 5 bank, who had different business areas creating documents in different ways. And so that led to some pain points. It made it difficult to maintain and update the documents that they had, even with a centralized group, because things were being done different ways for different groups, and they had to try to maintain some of that. They were using Word macros for their loan documents, and so that made it a lot more difficult to maintain the code and a lot more challenging to make changes when they were needed. So it was an attempt at assembling documents using Word macros, but it just wasn't a very easy to maintain solution. And that led to user frustration. It was more time consuming managing those documents, and it was more error prone. Really led to some challenges in efficiency and making sure that they were getting correct documents as output. So what did they do? They evaluated document assembly solutions and they started using HotDocs. So they used HotDocs and they automated about 350 documents related to loan packages around notes, securities, real estate documents, resolutions, mortgages, and other document types. So they really started to build across different business areas within their bank and provide a standard process for document assembly that they could apply to all of the business areas within their bank. They created master templates. So that would be a template that really drives a document package that would allow for the user to complete that interview and select certain outputs and selections to make sure they get all of the documents they need for a specific loan. They built out a service-oriented architecture. So they built out a way that they really could provide a service so that as they wanted to stand up additional business units within the bank, they had a very easy way to set that up and a very easy way to integrate into other solutions. So that really provided a layer of abstraction for a document generation process for them. They have a single documentation platform now. So as a new business unit wants to get into document assembly, they have this single platform that really allows them to be efficient in managing and maintaining and allowing for that to happen. And then they added some document management integration and integration with their system of record. So whether that's a loan origination system or some other system where they pull the data out of those systems to really keep the users from having to rekey any information that already exists in the right locations. So what does that allow to happen? Now they've got about 600 plus users using these HotDocs templates. So more than 500 templates. We talked about loan packages, but more than 500 total templates. 85% of the data that they use in those documents come from the system of record. What that means is in some cases they don't even display the HotDocs interview. All of the data comes from the existing system of record and simply as a back-end process generates these documents using HotDocs. And that allows them to be very efficient in generating documents. In fact, sometimes over 500,000 loan documents are generated monthly at this bank. So start checking the box now. They've got compliance. They know what types of documents they're going to get. They know for the documents that they've created through HotDocs, they know what they're going to get. So they are mitigating the risk. They're being efficient, and they're getting error-free documents. And they're literally saving millions of dollars because the return on investment is coming from how quickly they're able to turn around these documents in various business units. All right, so there's an easy user experience, and this is just a recap of what we looked at earlier. But when you're using HotDocs, you have a loan template. So you have this template that's been created from the documents, and that takes them to a HotDocs data gathering session that might be pre-filled with client data. And from that, you get your output documents. So from a user perspective, they love it, right? Select the document that they want to use, go answer a few questions, questionnaires pre-filled, and then get their output documents, and they're on their way. With a nice integration, maybe those output documents are even all going to where they need to go, maybe sent off to a printer following in a specific workflow. So from an end user perspective, they don't have to worry about opening up Word and going through documents and filling things out. They don't have to worry about making copy and paste errors or things like that. The data comes in, they answer any additional questions to get their documents. They're on their way. So they love it. The end user experience is just easy. Alternately, of course, you could have just select a template and get your output documents. So that HotDocs data gathering session may never happen to the user. It may just go straight to output documents from the data that's coming from that loan origination system or system of record. All right, so let's take a quick look at a demonstration here. So I'm going to refresh this page. It's been sitting open for a minute. So I'm going to use an application called HotDocs Workspace to show creation of some documents. And I've got this. I'm going to show it first just manually creating a document without any integration to my system of record. And then I'll actually enter a loan number. And this is tied into an example database I have to pull some information into a document. So I'm going to use this mortgage promissory note and loan agreement document for demonstration purposes. So you can see in this application, I can come in and I say I want to create a loan document. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to choose, I've got available to me different template groups. So in this case, we're letting the user select, I'm an administrator, I'm seeing all the groups. Maybe they only see templates that apply to them. I'm going to choose this mortgage promissory note and loan agreement. And I'm going to click create. And that will let me name this document. And I'm going to leave a loan number out in this case for just a moment. So I'm going to say Southside Properties, and I'll give it a name. I don't know, whatever my property is called. And I'm going to go to the interview. So this is going to take me to the HotDocs questionnaire for this particular template. So this is the HotDocs interview. As I come into this interview, you can see the interview has a basic structure. There's always an interview outline on the left-hand side. The actual questions on the right-hand side, the user just goes through and answers the questions. Little navigation toolbar and progress bar down at the bottom. At any point, they can preview the output document or get a little bit of help. And they just go through and answer the questions. So I could enter in some loan number and some member designation. I'm making this up. And I could enter a few things here. So the user, they just go through and answer the questions. A few things I'll point out with the variables as well. There are 5 basic input field types that you could see in these questionnaires, and how they're grouped together, how they're prompted, what help is with them is all controlled by that power user who builds the template content. So you can really build out standardization even in the interview process where you use the same questions across all of your documents. You format your questions in the same way across the documents. Add the help in the appropriate way to really provide a nice, seamless, and easy process to the end user. They can provide additional help content to questions. So right here, if I click that little light bulb, there's a little pop-up help associated with this question. That's just some additional content that maybe they don't need to see every time. And so I can go through and fill this out. I can click through each of the pages of questions and answer those questions and fill out this whole interview. Now, rather than do that right now, I'd rather show you an example of that coming in with data from a system. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to exit this, and I'll say save and exit. Now you can see that's an incomplete interview, so it gives me that status there, but it saves here so I can take some actions later if I want to go and pick back up where I left off. But let's do another one. I'm going to create a loan document. I'm going to choose that mortgage and promissory note again. I'm going to call this Northside Properties, and I don't call it Grove. I don't know, I'll call it Greens Crossing. And I'm going to enter a loan number here that will actually pull some data from my loan origination system. So just based on this loan number, it's going to go make a pull from my system of record, and it's going to pull that data right into the interview so that it's pre-filled with data from that system. So I say go to interview. And I get that same mortgage and promissory note and loan agreement interview that I just saw, but here you can see it's pre-filled with data. There's quite a bit of information already here. So I can fill out just the additional information. And the nice thing about the interview is you can see it gives me some nice visual indicators of where I need to go to fill out the additional information. So these blue icons are completely answered. So anything with a white icon, I can just click on it. Oh, there's a field I need to answer. I'll put in 8/31. Well, let's put in that. We'll put in today. That's the loan date. And then down in note information, I need to fill out that information as well. So we'll say equal installments. Well, let's do, we'll do it that way. So I just go through and answer all the questions. Once I've answered all the questions, you can see my progress bar go up to complete there. Beneath that, I just click the finish button. It's a nice big green button here. I'm going to go click. And when I hit finish, I get an output document that I can now download. This was part of a greater process that might get pushed into my document management system, but I'll just go ahead and download that document. And there opens in Word my completed document. So you can see all the information I've provided merged into the document, the loan amount, who the lender is, who the borrower is, or borrowers in that case. The signature block is built out properly down at the bottom when I go down to the bottom, even with the appropriate bylines for each of the individuals. So there's an addendum on here. Sorry, let me scroll up. So there you see the Northside Realty with the two people, and there's also an individual borrower as well. So there's you really can build out that signature block and get all that you need into your output document the way that you need it for your lending documents. Last thing I want to show in the demonstration here is that you might also, in this example that I went into and that data came from my loan origination system, I could modify it, but you may not want to allow them to modify. So when that data comes in, you could also make it read-only. So if I create a document here again, we'll use the same one, and we'll call this, I think the lender was John Jones in this one, if I remember right. Some property, we'll call it, I don't know, Grove Park. And then I'm going to put another loan number in here that will pull some information. Say go to interview. And I've set up this specific agreement where the data comes in, just like we saw in the other example, but it comes in a read-only format. So I can actually change those answer values as the user. I can only change the questions that are available for me to answer. So all of the data that comes from the interview is read-only, and I can simply add the additional data that I need to. So as an end user, you can see how quick this document process can become. When I'm pulling data from that system of record, maybe there's only a few additional questions I need to answer, and I answer those. Let's go. Ooh, that was a lot of twos. My keyboard's wigging out. All right. And then select all my items here. That's California. And once I've answered all the questions, I missed one. Oh, the date. Once I've answered all the questions again, I just hit finish. Oh, before I answer the questions, I wanted to show as well, at any point during the interview, I can click this document preview and see a preview of my output document. So I can toggle back and forth to that when I'm filling out that interview process as well. So if I want to see how a selection that I make in the interview affects how my output document is going to look, I can always preview it. And then when I'm done, I just hit finish, and I get my completed document that I can download, and I'm on my way. So you can see, very quick, easy user process. That interview that we looked at, it can be tightly integrated into another workflow process, so all of the information comes in. Maybe they jump right to the interview for a specific document from some other system, or like we mentioned earlier, it might be skipped altogether. So maybe the data that they need all comes, click a button, get your documents, they go into your document storage. So it really allows for a lot of flexibility in how you might implement it into your lending process. All right, so a little bit of a summary on lending documents. As you implement a document assembly software like HotDocs, what that will allow you to do is improve your compliance and mitigate the risk within your business. You're going to save time and you're going to save money. You're going to simplify the end user experience, and it's going to handle any document type that you're creating. HotDocs has been around for more than 20 years, like we said, and it can handle simple to very complex documentation, including calculating values, building in business logic into it. And then you're going to be able to integrate with the systems that you already use, and you're going to be able to centralize the control of the content that you're using. Lastly, we just want to give a little bit of some success and return on investment in banking. So this isn't from a particular bank, but from various banking organizations using HotDocs. We have some that are saving, 175 work hours daily on 100-page client documents, minutes to create commercial loans rather than days in that process. 100 average number of 40-plus page loans created daily, or millions of loans produced yearly. Controlled automated process, rights management, faster approvals when they've got to go through an approval process for that loan. They have a way to really feed that through. And then integrations into credit systems, workflows, ECM, all allow that process to be a lot more efficient. So it's a scalable process that will help you eliminate risk. And I think that's the favorite two words of a lot of banks, eliminate risk, right? So you can see document automation really can simplify your lending process and allow you to have a huge ROI and really build your business into something that's a lot more efficient and will help get you a great return on investment in your lending app and your lending programs. All right, so I thank you very much for your time. We're going to pause now for questions, but if you don't stick around for questions, I again want to thank you very much for attending today. I hope this was beneficial to you and that we can speak to you in the future about using HotDocs and simplifying your lending process. All right, so Marvin, I'll turn it back over to you for questions.
Hey, Mark, thank you very much. Yeah, and as Mark mentioned, yeah, thank you for taking time to join us today, and we'll spend a few minutes answering some of your questions, so you can just type those into the GoToWebinar panel, and we'll get to those. And then I also wanted to point out that we are recording this webinar, so we'll post a recording of this on our website. So if you want to go back and review this, or if there are other people in your organization that want to understand more about this lending process, that will be available on our website within the next few days, and we'll send out a notification to let you know. Okay, so let's see, one of the questions here. So how does a user decide which documents to create?
That's a great question. So it really depends on how you decide to implement your content creation. So some banks that I know will just simply post a list of templates, have each template be separate, and based on the name and description, the user makes the right selection. So they're trained and knowledgeable enough to make the right selection. However, the example bank that we gave They have built out some master templates. It's also possible to build out a template that drives the document selection process. So as a part of the questionnaire, either there are specific questions in the questionnaire that ask which documents to include, or maybe based on specific data that is provided for the loan, it automatically selects the appropriate output documents. So you can have that selection be manual or determined by business logic built into your template content.
Okay, great. Okay, the next one is which version of HotDocs was shown in that demo?
That is the latest version of HotDocs, HotDocs 11, with an application called HotDocs Workspace, which is a newer front end to HotDocs Server. This was HotDocs Server I was using.
Okay. Another one here, is HotDocs integrated with any e-signature technology?
Absolutely. We have done integrations with DocuSign, as well as we have looked, let's see, EchoSign. We've done some integration with EchoSign as well. So in some cases there's need for direct integration to automatically kick it into the signature process, and in some cases the integration is not taken quite that far because most e-signature tools simply need placeholders in the document for where the signatures need to go, so that when you upload the document into the process they're ready to go. And that's very easy to build into your HotDocs template. So even without any direct integration, you could just simply have the template have the appropriate placeholders so that when a document is created, you drop it into the DocuSign process and it's ready to go. So we have done direct integrations, but it also can be done pretty easily just by making sure the right placeholders for your e-signature process are in your output documents so that when they use them in the e-signature process, they work.
Okay, and another one here. So what systems does HotDocs integrate with? And some examples are AFS or ACBS, etc.
So we do not have off-the-shelf integrations with loan origination systems or things like that where we have a very direct integration with those systems. However, HotDocs has an architecture built to integrate with any system, basically with a database storage behind it. So there's a very easy way to go query data out of a system and pull it into that HotDocs interview like you saw me do in the demonstration today. So basically anything that has either an API that will allow their data to be accessible, or maybe a SQL or an Oracle database or some other type of database sitting behind it, then it would be very, very feasible to pull that data into a HotDocs interview process.
Okay.
So I answer that in a little more generic way than trying to list all of the ones that we've integrated with in the past.
Yeah, okay. Okay, this one's a little more specific here. So have you ever worked with an automotive lender to implement HotDocs? And if you have, can you describe which documents went through the HotDocs process and how you handle lean perfection requirements for electronic chattel paper?
So we have worked with a few automotive lenders. I personally have not worked with them directly. As far as lean perfection and electronic chattel requirements, those are specific. Let me back up a second. HotDocs is a document assembly process. So as far as meeting specific requirements about how the document should be formatted is easy. And it's just a matter of formatting your documents to meet those specific requirements. As far as electronic filing or something like that, sending the data that is provided in HotDocs comes out and can be saved in an answer file format, which is an XML format, which could be used as a feed into another process for e-filing or something like that as well. I have not specifically worked with that automotive vendor myself, but what we could do, if you want to follow up, the numbers are on the screen there. We'd be happy to follow up and have a separate conversation about that to further answer your question. We have worked with some.
Okay, another question here. So aside from lending, are there other areas within a bank that would benefit from document assembly?
Are there other areas in the bank? Yeah, anywhere where there's repetitive document creation. So lending is obviously a very prevalent one within a bank. But even internal documentation processes, things with sourcing or human resources, client onboarding, maybe it's not lending, but it's savings and other areas where you've got to gather information from a client before you create their accounts within a bank. Anywhere where you're doing either a questionnaire process to gather information or a documentation process for creating output documents that's very repetitive, you can utilize the HotDocs interview and document assembly process for.
Okay, great. It looks like that was the last question that came through. Okay, well, I guess that wraps things up now. So thank you, everybody, for taking time to join us today. And we hope that this was informative and helped answer any questions that you may have had about document automation technology and what it can do in a lending process. And as I mentioned, we'll get this recording up on our website shortly. So if you have other people you'd like to share this with, we'll have that available soon. So, and if you do have questions, feel free to send us an email or call us those numbers listed on the screen there, and we'd be happy to give you a more personalized demo or talk to you about your situation and see what we can do to help support your needs. So thank you again for your time today, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day. Thank you, and thank you, Mark.
My pleasure.